From the BBC World Service, in association with ABC and Akashvani, this is Stumped.
Hello, I'm Alison Mitchell and welcome to Stumped. With me in Sydney for the ABC is Jim Maxwell and Chari Sharma for Akashvani is in Bangalore. Now, the Ashes of 2025-26 has come to an end with Australia's men comprehensively winning the series 4-1 down under. The Ashes were retained in the first 11 days, Australia going 3-0 up before England's consolation win in Melbourne, and the Aussies then winning by 5 wickets at the SCG, chasing down 160 on the final day of the series. So how will both sides be feeling at the end now, and what could the teams look like in the future? Well, joining us is former Australia opener, Ashes winner and commentator Matthew Hayden, who I've been commentating with throughout the series as well. Welcome to Stumped. To what extent did the series live up to the hype, or not, in your opinion?
Hype, yes. Performances from maybe both teams, actually. I'm not 100% Australia were playing at full throttle. I'd give them maybe a 70% rating, but England were maybe 30%. I mean, Robert Key mentioned the word 20% I was reading. I think that may be a bit harsh, but 20%, 30%, whatever that figure was, it was certainly below par. And Australia, as you know, the drama of the Ashes continues because it is high stakes. Careers are made and they are also defeated in and around the Ashes. So it was certainly an entertaining series and a series that was full of drama. So the expectations were certainly met.
You know all about multiple Ashes wins. I want to talk to you, about the future of both teams in a second. But first of all, Joe Root, because he saved us all from seeing you walk naked around the MCG. That was your promise at the start of the series, wasn't it? If Root failed to score 100, but he not only got one, he doubled down the 160 in Sydney to follow that 138 in Brisbane. So, how good a player is he? And also, how relieved are you to keep your clothes on?
Well, I mean, it's hard to keep your clothes on during the Australian summer because it's so darn hot, as you guys know. But I was very relieved. In fact, I think my Grace was even more relieved because she too is working in the media, and the last thing that she wanted to see was any kind of bet fulfilled on my behalf, especially in a very cold MCG. But it was a bit of a no-brainer. And look, whilst it was a tongue-in-cheek kind of comment that we did on our own podcast, it was just all class from Root. I mean, he, Smith, they really kind of epitomise modern Test cricket. So they have the improvisation, they do have gears, but they've got the one skill that Bethel was able to show as well, and that is that they have a very simple technique, meaning they cut, they pull, they play down the ground. They are able to absorb pressure and build pressure on opposition because they occupy the crease for a large period of time because their temperament allows them to do it. I would imagine in the wash-up to this series, someone like Harry Brook would go, gosh, I was several times in a position to be able to score Test match hundreds on reasonably good batting conditions, especially in at least two of the 3 Test matches. But I failed to do so because I wasn't able to keep my wicket in hand. And the old adage, Maxie, you've watched as many games of cricket as what I've even thought about, of being able to just occupy the crease and find a way through certain periods of time that wasn't an expansive, tight game to be played. And young Bethel showed us that beautifully in Sydney, I thought. And when you think about the future, Ali, that's exactly what will be looking for. They'll be looking for those kind of players that have an aptitude to playing Test match cricket, to playing the longer formats of the game. So often we get confused with the shorter formats of the game and we don't celebrate Test cricket enough.
Talking of the future, I mean, Ben Stokes as England captain, his body is struggling a bit, isn't it? Even in this series, suffering that adductor injury on day 4 in Sydney. No one can ever question his commitment to England, and he says he wants to carry on. But in terms of his body, he's had knee, hamstring and shoulder injuries. Do you think this is the last time we've seen him play in the Ashes in Australia?
Yeah, that's a challenging question. It's a headline type question because, as we all know, the disciplines and rigours of international cricket across multiple formats of which he operates. I think my criticism with Ben is his lion-hearted performances. They kind of confuse the leadership opportunity that's at hand because he kind of takes it all on his shoulders. when you looked at the performances throughout the course of the summer, there wasn't a lot, or you didn't feel like, I'm not saying that this is absolutely what happened, but you didn't feel like there was a lot of performances that were necessarily coming to hand, when it came to the overall match performance of the English cricket team. I mean, it took a very late charge to have someone like Bethel into the team. When you looked at the bowling attack, Tongue didn't start, and I felt like he was probably their best bowler. But always you'd see Stokes trying to be over and above what he needed to be because he didn't really have cast. They tried Potts, and that didn't work. I mean, he got smashed 141 off his 25 overs, and they don't have a frontline spinner, which I would argue the top. I was listening to Mark Taylor on Triple M, and he was saying oftentimes as a former cricketer, you veneer over the story because of the success or the lack of success, maybe. For example, batting prowess on wickets that are rated okay wickets, like Perth was rated a okay wicket, but yet that test match was over in 2 days. And the same could be said also of the MCG. But is it just because the technical capacity of players is not there to actually sustain that kind of high level technical elements, ball seaming, ball swinging, ball bouncing? And so we as broadcasters kind of get roped into the lowest common denominator of trying to work out, well, was that a good pitch or was it not a good pitch? But certainly, Stokes right through this series found a way to almost over-bowl himself, which sort of to me means that there's maybe not trust issues, but certainly from a performance point of view, couldn't really, guarantee or shore up his bowling attack or batting attack in any given test match.
Steve Smith stepped up, led the side, is now the second highest run scorer behind Bradman in Ashes history. He's indicated that he probably may not play another Ashes series in Australia. What makes him special as a batsman, particularly in the Ashes?
Born 36 years young and almost 37 years young, it is going to be a challenge for any of these players, like at that age to reach the next Ashes series. And we do have an ageing team, don't we? That's the reality of it. Only Cameron Green, who came under the heat, this summer, was the only person under 31, I think it was, or 30. So we've got some really, strong challenges ahead. But Stephen strategically is an excellent captain. I think you could really say that Pat Cummins would rely on that when he took the ball in hand as the captain of this country. Stephen does find a way to break down the play really nicely. He's a very good reader of play. Like anything of the greats of the game, their common denominator is that they were kind of one or maybe even 2 or 3 steps ahead of the match. And Stephen, from a preparation point of view, something that was coming under the challenge for England in this series, it actually came under the challenge, if you remember as well, Jim, with Steve Smith himself having, quite an extended period of time in New York where he's residing with his wife. And there was murmurs around the hutch of, he should come out and play at least those 4 first-class games, but he played a couple of them, right, and made hundreds in a pretty difficult conditions up at the Gabba too, was one of his first games. So he reads the conditions well, he pounces on opportunities to attack, and then he's able to go, right, well, now's the time where I need to be a little bit more subdued, and finds his rhythm and tempo in the match better than most because he's so far ahead of the game. And look, because I'm at North Stradbroke Island and I've got nothing but fish in my head, he has got an eye like a dead fish.
This is where we're speaking to you from, off the beautiful coast of Queensland.
An eye like a dead fish. He's got beautiful hands, and those two things in combination make him as lethal as anyone that's played the game. And his hunger, Maxi, as well. Again, another attribute to all the great players. They don't get hundreds; they get enormous hundreds. They bat, long periods of time, and they find a way to keep scoring runs around the corner, like Joe Root. He must have come here and gone, gee, I haven't got a test match 100 in Australia on very good batting conditions, but one's surely got to be around the corner. So they're quite optimistic as well, and I think that's Stephen.
Talking about the dead fish and that wonderful eye. Travis Head, how impressed have you been with him as an opener, and is that where he should stay?
I think this is a very difficult time to launch into an argument about the role of Travis Head because he has been that formidable, right through this series, averaging 62 as an opener with 3 big hundreds, including 163 in this last Test match. Zeroing in on over 600 runs. I mean, he has found a method. I think he's also plugged a giant hole since David Warner, and that is a more attacking opening batter. Usman was great. We've seen the curtain close on his fabulous career. We celebrated that, didn't we, over the last few days? One of the things, though, when you've got Marnus, when you've got Usman, when you've got Steve Smith, is that you've got quite a sluggish or certainly more of a defensive type batting unit. It's broken in and around Alex Carey, who had a fantastic series, but Travis is that offensive player. And I'll never forget this, Jim. When Travis came out to open in Perth in that magnificent run chase, the England change room just about broke their neck looking over at who was going to replace Usman. And that to me says it all. He's an impact player. He's a player that people not only want to go watch, but they as an opposition player, they don't want to bowl to because they, in essence, don't know. We always talk about in broadcast, bowling the top of off stump. Well, he turns that into kind of a fifth stump and finds a way to swat it over extra cover and cover. I mean, as a former opening batsman, I've got to say, I'm on the edge of my lounge chair going, oh, it's just and the result is just it's hard to argue this point. I think his natural position is back where he needs to be, and that opens questions at number 5. That opens questions as to who our opening batters are. But for the moment, Travis Head is absolutely on fire, and I can't see him wanting to move. Can you?
No, there's no reason to move him. He gives them momentum. Now to the future, 18 months' time, another Ashes series. Who can Australia build a strong team around in 18 months?
Well, it opens up who's going to be the opening batter. If it's going to be with Travis Head, they can build around Travis. I believe that Matt Renshaw is a notable, just because I've seen his evolution, especially over the last couple of years. When you think about Matt's development, even the way he started the summer in one-day cricket, it was kind of a bit of a poor time. I remember thinking at the time, gee, this could break his momentum and therefore break the possibility of him winning a spot in the Ashes squad for the first Test match, because he wasn't then playing a first-class game of cricket where he was dominating, already made 300s for the summer. So, I think he has to come into the equation again, Jim. Some of the rookies around the place, it's hard. It's probably a bit early to see. I think too often that you see Sammy Constance, for example, he's got a huge role to play in the future. I've got no question of it. When his batsmanship starts to come into my mind, and hence why I'm a little critical of the back of house staff. Nothing against Michael Di Venuto, but I just feel like there has to be a different voice that's leading the charge on a bit more technical savvy and a bit more of a way to create, and build a Test cricketer, similar, Jim, to the way that Alan Border did with Bobby Simpson. He'd take players and he'd kind of like knock the edges off them and make them into diamonds. I think there needs to be a little harder voice in there, kind of building the strategy around what that looks like from a batting point of view. I love Bo Webster. I thought he was really stiff not to be the all-rounder of choice. I didn't know, quite frankly, that he could bowl off spin, but even that turned out to be pretty handy as well. So to me, he looks like a very complete cricketer. So there has to be some bolters, there has to be some complete cricketers, and a little shake-up, I think, of all of that batting order, because what I did see this summer was convincing enough, but I'm not sure dependable enough either.
You mentioned that Cameron Green was perhaps the only one who faced the heat. But let me tell you, when his IPL fee hits his account, he'll be pretty cool about everything.
Yeah. I mean, so many people have come to the IPL with huge price tags, and I think it does create its own heat. Those sort of numbers that we saw. He has got the game right. Like I mentioned Bo Webster, but in defence of Cameron Green, there's no doubt that he's got an X factor in and around the way that he goes about his cricket. He just didn't put it all together in this series, and he felt the heat, no doubt. And a player has to feel that heat. And then once they feel that heat, they overcome that heat, then they become seasoned professionals and campaigners, and it'll stand him in great stead, this series, for the IPL, because the IPL has got its own threshold of pressure. But honestly, the Ashes series here, it buries a lot of people. It makes a lot of athletes, but it buries a lot of people as well. So I think Cameron Green will stand himself in great stead for the IPL.
Back to the hyped Ashes, and for good reason. Now, when you go down 1-4, obviously some heads do tend to roll. But let's mix the two up. One, the management, Baz and even Rob Key, have indicated that they're happy to stay. There's no real axe on their heads for the moment. But your thoughts on what should England be doing? Plenty of reflection, yes. But should the heads be rolling? Should they look for large-scale changes?
Look, I'd like to see them just tighten up. I think that the scoreline of the Ashes series doesn't necessarily reflect the talent that's in that team. I tend to agree with Stuart Broad and his comments, which did the rounds in Australian media and in fact all over the world, around this team being the best side since 2010, and Australia potentially, with as many challenges as what they've had since that time as well. But when you look at performances, like I think Zach Cawley is a very fine player. I think Ben Duckett as well. Like you go through the list, Bethel, we saw obvious talent there. Joe Root, magnificent. Brook, Jacks, Smith, Stokes. I mean, on paper, these guys are fantastic cricketers, but to me, they kind of blew their chances because they didn't recognise key moments where they could just hang in there. I mean, I thought there was going to be one in the second innings, for England yesterday. I mean, they were cruising. Bethel just had us on toast. Yes, they were a long way behind the game, but, Brook was looking too easy. He had a strike rate of 87 when he got out. And he got out, LB to Webster that, is a part-time spinner. Jamie Smith run out. I mean, just hard moments. Will Jacks played the shot of just, oh my God. I mean, I just about had a heart attack when I watched that shot.
There were too many of those in this series.
Ali, there was so many missed opportunities like that. So it's not the talent pool, but it's also just that management team, which I highly back, especially Baz, to actually bring the best qualities out in these players. Because to me, that's not Baz ball. That's just crazy ball. That's madness stuff. And so, if Baz and that team can just eliminate with some wise head thinking around the game some of those key moments and get someone like Harry Brook performing like he can, England is so dangerous. They need a spinner, though. That's one thing they definitely need.
Well, I don't need to remind you, Haydos, about what Chappelli thinks of coaches, but let's get to that. How much credit do you think Australia head coach Andrew McDonald needs to get for this 4-1 win?
Yeah, well, I think a lot. I think due respect has to be paid. I sense the murmurings in the camp from us old fellas that, a spinner needs to be picked in Sydney. I don't think that was a very good decision, but the cracks have been covered because when you put a win next to the column, it means that the obvious elephant is in the room. But looking forward, when you start to play in the subcontinent, which every team does, through Test World Championship cycles, you need to have that base covered for a Nathan Lyon who's now ageing. Simple as that. And to me, we don't necessarily have that. So is that the role of the coach? Probably not. But as you know, it's a very combined role between coach, chairman of selectors and captain. We certainly have seen Steve Smith as a captain of choice in the absence of Brett Pat Cummins. I would argue that, and Ali, you might be able to tell me this because I was probably out fishing this day, but Steve Smith, I believe, went off the field. And who was the incumbent captain? I think there was comments in and around. Well, who's now captain? Is it Marnus? Is it Travis? Who was that person that was captaining in the absence of Pat Cummins and also now Stephen Smith? I'm not sure.
Not obvious.
Not obvious. That's right. So
No,
there
not
needs to
obvious,
be a succession plan with that as well, because these players, as much as we'd love them to play forever, they're not going to. No one has.
Yeah, that's the challenge really facing both these teams now. What change will happen with England? They're very quick to put out a post-tour statement, the ECB, but they've certainly said that any changes won't be happening immediately. They'll be making changes over the coming months. So we know England go to the T20 World Cup, as do all countries after this. And Brendan McCullum also in charge of the white ball setup now as well. But yes, the Aussie team will be evolving over the coming years as well. Hey, Dos, great to have you with us on Stumped. Go back and enjoy the fishing on Stradbroke Island. It's a beautiful spot. Great to have you with us tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. Thank you. What a great summer. What a celebration of fantastic cricket. And it's always a great pleasure to be a part of it.
That is Matthew Hayden, former Australia Open and Ashes winner, with us on Stumped to dissect all things Ashes. Well, that's all we've got time for on Stumped for this week. So I'll say thanks to Jim Maxwell and to Charis Sharma. And of course, to all of you for watching. Do it again next time. Bye-bye.